Okay, we should be live, people. Woo. Let's let everybody in. Start broadcasting. Right. Hopefully we'll see two. They start to come in. Brilliant.
All right, getting going. Good morning, everyone. Hello, welcome. We'll give it a couple of seconds, let everyone else roll in here. You know what? We're already late. Let's get going. So good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Glue. I am one of the organizers at Morning Startup. Literally one of the stupidest times to ever host a meetup group. I mean, whose idea was this anyway? Crazy. So what we do, rain, hail or shine, is every 2 weeks we put on an event. Usually it's in person at the wonderful Riff, and we talk about startup stuff. So we'll get a presenter that knows what they're talking about in a certain area that's relevant to startup people, and we'll have a bit of networking at the end. But during these dark and uncertain times, we've been forced to go over Zoom. So and we've got a good event on today. So we've got Jurgen van Pletsen, who's going to be talking about the no-code movement. So if you've all read the description, if you have an MVP that you want to get out, or maybe just an internal tool that you want to make, he's going to show you how you can do that without writing a line of code using some of the tools available at the moment. So it's going to be awesome. All right, but before we get going, we also have Dave Newman, who is here. He's one of the other organizers at Morning Startup. And Robbie Nolan is also an organizer as well. I'm not sure if he's there in the group. All right, but what we usually get started with is introductions and shameless plugs. So when we're in person, we usually get you to stand up and introduce yourself. And if you've got anything that you'd like to share, to please do it. But in this case, where we're not in person, please use the chat in Zoom. Make it your own. If you've got any questions that you want to ask the group, throw it in there. There's Robbie. He's in the chat. Hey, Robbie. Yeah, if you've got any shameless plugs, throw links in there. Do whatever you want. All right. Yeah. I'm going to get my hat on.
Yes, I feel like I should get my hat too. Sorry.
All right, so we couldn't do this, bring it online without Ammo. Ammo have been fantastic. They've helped us take this online, helping us with the Zoom costs and so on. So if you could, please go to ammo.marketing, find your way to the Weird Growth podcast. It is not a podcast about dermatology. It is a podcast about entrepreneurship, especially in Perth. So Cam has some interviews with some Perth-based founders and innovation folk. Really, really great interviews, great content. So please subscribe to that and learn some interesting things. Also, just check out ammo.marketing and look at their marketing services. They can help you through all stages of your startup, whether you're validating an idea, whether you're trying to really nail down product market fit, or whether you're really ready to hit that accelerator and start growing. So hit them up if you need any marketing. Dave, you got anything to add to that? Nice hat.
No, yeah, I think you've said it all, mate. I want to say big thanks out to them for helping us cover the costs of putting Morning Startup online. I'm actually just getting a few texts from people who showing me have my mobile number, asking where's the link. And if you're watching this, obviously you don't need the link. If you're watching this later, the link is actually in the meetup group webpage. And for me, for some reason, I'm probably the only person that has issues whenever I try to go to the meetup page, but I will try and dig it out. And if you're watching this later, I will text it to you now. So next one, Scott.
Beecham Group.
Beecham Group, yes. So yeah, I'll do this one. So Beecham Group, Glenn, I can't see if he's in the list there, but if Glenn's watching, hi Glenn. Glenn and the Beecham Group and his team, they're a boutique recruitment company working out of Perth. If you are looking for that new job or you're looking to recruit someone, then give Glenn and his crew a tap on the shoulder and go and speak to them. I know that big advocates of the startups team. They've been on board with us for a while now, and again, the reason we meant to shout them out as a sponsor is because it costs us money. For myself, it's personally, I've been paying for it for the last 5 years to run the meetup group, and Glenn's and Beecham Group have kindly stepped in and said, "Hey, look, we'll will help you cover the costs of running this meetup group. So big shout out to Glenn and his crew. I can't find the meetup link, so just check out, just go to meetup.com and you'll find it there. For some reason, I'm getting this page is not working at the moment. So
oh, okay, I'll try and dig it out too. All right, so besides Beecham and Ammo, there are a ton of supportive organizations that help out Morning Startup and just the Perth startup community in general. Startup news, just head to Startup News, I believe it's .com.au, and subscribe to they put out content all the time, and it's fantastic. You've got Charlie and Patrick and the guys there that are just finding stories in Perth-based entrepreneurship and pushing them out. And if you have a story as well, please email them at Startup News, and they are more than happy to get that content out. So a terrific service for Perth startups. Likewise, techboard.com.au. If you haven't claimed your profile on Techboard, go and do that. And if you've got an announcement to share, such as a new hire or anything like that, you can put it on Techboard, and that goes out to their community, which is sort of investment focused. So if you are looking at raising, it's a really good idea to get a nice constant stream of announcements happening on Techboard, so that when you are ready to go and pitch to investors, they already probably know about you a little bit. Voltage Espresso. So when we are at Riff, and hopefully we get back there not too far away, there's an awesome coffee shop over the road, and they need your support right now. So if you are in the city, I believe they're open. Go and grab yourself a coffee from Voltage Espresso. Usually we have a morning startup discount. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
I haven't been to the city for like months now, so I think I'm going to make a trip and go and see them. Just because I can.
Why not? So, yeah, I'm missing their coffee desperately. The ones I make here just don't quite cut it, unfortunately. Anyway, they're great. So we usually have a discount if you tell them you've been to Morning Startup, but don't ask for it. Just grab an awesome coffee.
Buy two. Buy a cake. Buy a sandwich. They are amazing. Sorry, I was trying to get this guy the link. He's quite, he's bless him. He really wants to get on and watch this session today. So I'm desperately trying to find him this link. So I don't know who you've done. Who haven't you done yet?
I haven't done Niche Interview, Business News, and Space Cubed.
So I will do Space Cube. So again, whilst we are not in there, we are at Space Cube or Riff in spirit. Basically, I'd like to thank Kylie, Brody, and all the gang at Space Cube for being our landlords essentially for the last 10 years, 9 years, something like that. We couldn't do it without them. Thank you very much. If you are looking for a co-working space, if you're an early stage startup, then check out Riff. If you're a bit more of a scale up, then check out Flux up the road. They've got a package to meet any number of different situations.
Absolutely. So our speaker today is pretty over what Niche Interview does, given he runs it. So nicheinterview.com.au or
yeah, .com. I think .com.au might work, but .com's the original.
So head there, go to the startup events page, and you'll find a whole bunch of past Morning Startups. Jurgen's often there with his cameras and his mics, just recording the events, and not just Morning Startups, but other Perth startup events as well. So a lot of content on Niche Interview. Also go to perthvideo.com.au, which is one of Jurgen's latest ventures, where he's offering live streaming services and recording services for your events. Yeah, check it out. And
brilliant.
That's it. Did you do business news, Dave?
I can't remember. I didn't hear business news. I will do business news. So if you want to get yourself in front of some high net worths and get yourself into business news, then send business news an email, and they will do a quarter-page spread about what your startup is, the problem you're solving, and essentially basically what you're doing. So definitely worth getting yourself some free exposure there. Did you mention startup news? I've managed to find the link, and I've sent that person. So hopefully, Fayed, if you're online, I will see in a minute if you've managed to find the link. So yes, everything to help someone. Right, next one.
All right. So announcements. Again, just throw them in the chat if you've got any announcements. I've seen a few. Justin Davis working for the city of Subiaco to help business owners. There's a link there.
Charlie's got one there. Startup West podcast is also run by Startup News, and today they're publishing their latest chat with founder Jesse from Keepspace. Jesse. So yeah, by all means, go to Startup News and subscribe to the Startup West podcast.
Ooh, yes,
how do you get your hands on an ammo cap? You can't. It's like gold. You the stuff you have to do to get one of these. Well, I'm sure if you tap up Cam, I'm sure he would. He's merch is king here. So
tell you what, maybe if you ask an insightful question at the end, we can share your details with the ammo marketing guys if you're happy with that, and they can get a hat out to you. I'm sure they'd be happy to do that.
Exactly.
Just putting words in Cam's mouth, but we'll see.
Yes. Cam, you will send the hat. Yes, this is the hat you need. So, right.
All right. Okay, so if you want to contact us, maybe you want to present here one day, or you just like a topic that you want to hear about, please hit us up. We're Morning Startup on all of the things. Contact@morningstartup.com is our email address. So we've also got a Slack channel, and we're on Facebook and Twitter. But if you are on Slack, get on perthstartup.com.au. It's a Slack community for Perth entrepreneurs. Active discussions going on in there every day. So please get around it. Brilliant. All right. Okay. Well, without any further ado, I think that's the end of our intro slides, unless you got anything else there, Dave?
No, like I said, I'm just looking to see if there's not much going on. Okay. If it's happening, it's happening online. Obviously, Trent just mentioned the Weird Growth podcast, which is from Ammo Marketing. There is a link in it, but it's anchor.fm/Ammo Marketing if you want to listen to that podcast.
Absolutely. It is very good. Okay, well, then let's, Dave, if you want to do the magic, and actually I'll stop sharing my screen so Jurgen can share his. While you're doing that, I gave you a little intro before, but Jurgen's been a huge supporter of Morning Startup for ages now. And he told us while we were still in person, so it seems like a year ago now, but he's like, hey, I've been playing with all these.
So long ago, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So I've been playing with all these no-code tools, and they're really awesome. Even though you are a developer, you know how to code, there are reasons why you might use these anyway, right? So anyway, I'm going to shut up and just pass over to you so you can get started.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Scott and Dave and Robbie in the chat there. I can see that you're watching. It's very nice to be able to talk to everyone today, and thanks for having me about. So usually this will happen in person. So for me, this is kind of a weird thing, talking to myself on the screen with no audience and things like that. So it's also very early, so I'm not a morning person at all. So I tried my best to clean up for you guys, and hopefully today, with what I'm going to share with you, I can inspire you a little bit to kind of get going and just not wait before you launch and start the thing that you want to build. 5 years ago, I'll get into a quick little intro in a minute, but 5 years ago, I had some ideas for software that would have helped me to do my work at the time. And I went and tried to find developers. I had capital for it and everything. And even just trying to find someone to help me build what I wanted to build was extremely difficult because I couldn't explain exactly what I had in my mind. So, having that translated into some product that came out of 6 months period after that wasn't going to be what I needed and so on. Like, it was just a very difficult process. So I started looking at ways which I can do it myself. And to make a long story short, between sticky tape of spreadsheets and a little bit of VBA stuff, and then some haphazard like Zapier calls and things, I was able to kind of string together the bare bones functions of some applications, which I'll show you the latest ones today. And it's changed the way I think about software completely. So like Scott mentioned, I know how to code, but I'm self-taught. So I'm more of a pragmatic coder rather than a computer science proper, kind of person. And I think let me go through the introduction actually. I'm completely unqualified to talk to you today, which is probably a good thing, right? In this particular instance, because there's many of you out there that are probably also unqualified as far as it goes to development kind of field. And therefore it's important to know that you are not alone and that there's options for you. So with that in mind, I want to talk today about low code specifically. Low code and no code is two terms often thrown around here. And it's going to be startup focused, right? So I'm talking here about as a startup developing software that faces the public, that you sell access to. There's many places where you can use these platforms or similar platforms internally in a business. So rather than you developing a piece of software that people buy to have access to, you can develop an internal workflow process or something that optimizes the way that you do work inside a business. And whilst that's super valuable and a very valid area of growth for this whole theme, that's not my focus here. So I'm assuming that you have some idea. You're probably a scrappy little startup with very limited capital, limited time, and building the resources around you. And so it's probably still something that you need to do throughout the process. So that's the perspective from which all the comments should go. We're also going to do a quick MVP primer. So there might be some of you in the audience, I know we've got quite a lot of people here today, that doesn't know or needs a bit of a refresher real quick about what a minimum viable product is. And so I thought maybe it'd be useful to just include a section on that. Then I'm going to go into low code versus no code versus code and talk about what these things are, what exactly does it mean, what can you use and how does it work? And then I'm going to show you some industry examples and tell you how to get started, where to go. And if you really want to supercharge it, basically you can learn from my 2 years of really hacking with these things. What exactly would I wish I could tell myself back then? Where should I spend my time upskilling in certain areas to make it most effective? And then lastly, if there's time, hopefully I can run through a few of my products for you and show you just the stuff that I've been able to build with very minimal development skill and some assistance from friends who are developers when I needed it. We've been able to build some pretty cool stuff. So if that sounds good to you, I do really miss the engagement of a face-to-face meeting. So in the chat line, I've sent a link there with the presentation of today. So if you click that link, you should be able to kind of load it up on a screen next to you or follow along on your phone or whatever. And also, if you can just kind of type a hello or a yes, awesome, or something like that, just so I get some feedback from the group, that would be awesome. So anything you can do to help me out there, ask questions in there and so on would be awesome. So, Charlie, that's very nice of you. Thank you. Yep, feeling the love, guys. Thank you so much. All right, so let's get into it. Every presenter needs to kind of introduce themselves first. I hate this kind of thing, but I need to do it because there are many of you that do know me and there's many of you that don't know me. So I'm Jurgen. I am a very keen follower and participant in the startup ecosystem here in Perth and in other places as well. My background is in management consulting at Deloitte, and I've got some accreditations and things that people have like assigned to me and so on over the past, which I'm quite proud of. I've developed a few little apps. The very first one was one called Gretel. You can see that. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you can see that over there. That was probably 10 years ago now. Just as the iPhone 3G, I think, came out and the App Store was opened up, we developed this app that can send a duress alarm, track your GPS, and kind of communicate out if anything happened to you, if you got mugged in the street or something like that. That was quite a lot of fun. I'm also part of the Founder Institute back when it was still running, and Startup Weekends. I'm a keen mentor at these events, and usually I talk about things like either marketing or validation of a product idea, getting things off the ground and doing so very efficiently. And then last thing worth mentioning is probably the Perth Video. So I own perthvideo.com.au, and so we are a video company there that have supported the startup community quite a lot over the last few years, and all of those things are published at nicheinterview.com. So if you wanted to go to some past events, you can check them all out there, and the link is in the chat here as well. So make sure you grab a copy of that and don't forget. So that's enough about me. Like I mentioned, I'm completely unqualified to talk to you today, and that's a good thing because going from a complete greenfield is pretty good in this particular scenario. So no code is all about building something that is useful to someone, functional in its capability, but without any kind of programming knowledge or very little at that, in a very short period of time compared to traditional methods of resourcing up a team, scoping out a development piece of work, and all these kind of activities that are required. And it's amazing because you can get things done very quickly and iterate very quickly. And it's a kind of a cool quote coming up here from Chris Wanstrath, who is the founder of GitHub. And for those who are not coders, GitHub is a place for coders where people talk about, where people use version control tools to work together on developing a piece of software. So it's a big deal. GitHub's huge. And I think they were acquired by Microsoft a few years back. But the fact that someone that started something like GitHub is saying that the future of coding is no coding at all should signal to you some essence of where the world's going. You know, we're getting this idea now of a citizen developer. You think back before Web 2.0, for those of you who are old like me, back in the day, we had HTML1. So the web was one way. And so you'd go on a web page and you'd consume content. And you got your news at the time, mainly from like newspapers and TV and so on. And then when the internet developed a little bit, people started commenting and blogs came about. You got this idea of a citizen journalist all of a sudden, and journalists were all up in our because of that, because suddenly people were taking away the eyeballs from their work, and you know, they were seen as kind of nobodies, yet they're publishing, and so you know, they don't deserve to be publishing. And a similar thing is happening in many different industries. There's citizen designers with tools like Canva, for instance. This whole presentation I made in Canva because I don't know how to design. And I think it looks okay, you know? And so there's a lot of industries that are being disrupted, and developers and development in general, for a big portion of it is kind of in the crosshairs there. So that's, as a developer, something to think about. I don't think developers are ever going to die out. Obviously, all these tools that we're going to talk about, they need code to run to make it easy for someone, you know. And there's definitely a time and place for these type of tools versus something that goes into what they call production, which is like the real big public push of it. But I mean, there's a lot of areas in the early stages of something where you no longer are going to need the developers as much as you think. So it's a $21 billion industry projected to be by 2022. So that's 18 months away. And that means there's a lot of opportunities, guys. So if you either learn how to use these tools and build these little apps for people to get them started, or develop a tool or some kind of part of this ecosystem yourself and piggyback on this wave, or just build your own thing using these tools. Fact is, it's a big industry, and there's a lot of opportunities for you guys out there if you care to make it a part of you. So that's a little bit of context about it. If you have any questions, if it's all good, just keep writing me all good, and just little okay great comments like in the chat, so I just get some feedback. Otherwise, I'll just keep powering through it. So for us to understand why this is important from a startup perspective, we need to do a quick primer on MVPs. And so there's a lot of different schools of thought about this stuff. I'm not a scientific startup person or anything like that. I just know what I do, and I know what kind of work for me. So, you know, the hardcore diehard fans might disagree with some of these things because, you know, everyone's got their opinion. But essentially an MVP, guys, is when you build something that I believe should be functional. It should be as quick as possible to launch it to the right market, and then get feedback from that so you can iterate really quickly. It's all about reducing risk in your venture early on so that you don't burn your life savings finding out that no one wants your product 2 years later. You know, it's very important to have this validation mindset and a kind of a lean mindset about product development, because really time is money. Money is not easy to get. And so as a startup founder, your custody over those funds and the way that things work, it's very important to have that right. So we want to launch fast in the shortest amount of time possible at the cheapest cost. We don't care if that thing is perfect. We just want to have it functionally match the core problem we're trying to solve. We then want to validate that with customer feedback, and lots of it. So we want to talk to as many customers, show as many people the thing, have them use it specifically, preferably if we can, and then use that feedback to iterate rapidly to repeat this process and either get the product closer to a winner or eject from the process, cut our losses and move to the next thing. That's how I think about it. So the reason no code is very interesting here is because it lets you stop some of these problems from happening. So for those of you who are project managers or consultants, you may have seen this graphic. It's basically pretty fun and pretty interesting graphic for nerds like us. But it's about the need of the customer versus what's actually delivered and understood by different people, and it demonstrates the communication breakdown that occurs between people as something gets developed. And the less you have to communicate, the less you have to hand things over for someone else to build, for instance, the less XYZ steps there are between you and the thing that you want to build, the more closely it's going to be aligned to what you're thinking, so your requirements, and the more closely it's probably going to align to the requirements of the person you're trying to solve the problem for, because as the founder, you probably understand that better than anyone. And so this idea of your plan versus the reality, hopefully you can, through using no-code tools, make the reality a little bit smoother than what it otherwise would have been with all these kind of communication breakdown issues for that. So now, when we get to what an MVP looks like, a lot of people think an MVP is just some parts of the bigger picture, right? So in the sense of a car, if we say the problem that we're trying to solve is want to get from A to B, how not to build an MVP is to build wheels by themselves and then go to the market with your wheel and say, what do you think of this wheel? Because it doesn't have any context, and the wheel by itself can't function, can't service the core problem that's being solved. So you can't really get from A to B on a wheel, nor can you do so on two wheels. So iterating on a shitty start to an MVP and an incorrect understanding of it is very difficult, because you're just going to fundamentally build. And through a lot of trial and error and work and rework and cost and everything else, you might end up at stage 4 over here with a nice little car, which makes the customer happy. But this is a very expensive journey to undertake. However, if you take the approach that the thing that you go out to market with as an MVP needs to functionally solve the core problem, and therefore allow you to have people use it immediately to solve that problem, then this is where no-code tools are extremely valuable. Because prior to no-code or low-code tools, if you wanted to get to step 1 here at the bottom one, you needed a developer. You can't build this yourself, so you need a developer to actually get some functionality into your idea. And therefore, even getting to step 1 here on the correct approach to do an MVP is quite difficult. And with no-code tools, basically, you can now take yourself to step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, maybe. And then from there, once you have people saying yes, 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 maybe some of them are even starting to pay you for access to this thing, because obviously it solves this problem. It just doesn't look good, maybe. You can use that funding to self-fund the development, so you don't need investors. Or you can use that early revenue to get better investment and say, look, we've already got money. We have a shitty product, but we've got people paying us. Will you please invest so we can build this thing properly? And at that point, resource a team up and get proper development going and make the thing robust and strong. So I hope that's clear, the difference. If it isn't, let me know in the chat. But it's about building something that solves that problem as an MVP, not just a small chunk of the bigger whole. And then dollying it up and making it look great later and more robust and secure and everything else. So big detailed text slide. I couldn't figure out in Canva how to make things appear one after the other. So you're just going to have to stick with me here. So yes, Sophie, I'm going to talk about some of those in a minute. So thanks for asking. All right, so just for those who need to know, so code versus low code versus no code. Think of code as whatever you do at the moment. So you need a team of developers. The risks and some of the characteristics of that would be high upfront fixed capex, right? And that should scare you, should shudder a little bit if you hear the word capex as a startup founder, because capex is risk for your business, because you have to spend the money upfront to develop the asset, and then only after it's developed you'd know if it's got a marketable position, because it can't exist without all that expenditure, and that's where the risk goes. It's slow to build it because you need a team of people. It's very complex. There's a lot of scoping work that needs to be done. There's stuff that needs to be handed over to different people. There's specialist skill sets that may be required. And for the founder, there's a bit of a black box issue. So the person that's close to the customer view and the customer's need and core problems, they might have a issue of a black box, but I don't really know how the developer did the thing that the customer is going to get. And so by not understanding and really getting into the detail of the context of how that product came to life, technically, it's difficult for them then to answer questions about what it can do when they speak to the customer, and really get a sense for how long it takes to get to a resolution. So if the customer asks them, okay, what about this feature? Can I have this? If you built it yourself, you just go, yep, sure, I'll have it done next week. But if you have to go back to a team, there's all sorts of organizational processes that need to go through, let alone the understanding. So the whole thing is quite inefficient when we talk about a startup at an early stage. Don't want to be there if we can help it. There's also a disconnect between the scope and the build. So like that presentation image I showed you earlier with the swing, what you say is not necessarily what someone hears. And what they say to someone else is not necessarily what you meant to this person first. So this Chinese whispers kind of thing, and that type of thing, that's very real. And project management, especially when there's high capex at play, it's very risky for you as a founder. Maintaining a code base can be complex. This is where GitHub's good. It's why it exists and why it was bought out, I guess. But maintaining a code base is a complex thing. However, with code, you obviously get full control of everything. Every byte that is transferred, every zero that is done somewhere, and every one, like, you're in control of that. You can see the whole code base. You can copy and paste it somewhere. You can do whatever you want with it. You own it. It's yours, everything. And that's important. And the ownership one at the bottom there, it's very important. Like, if you want to have the value of an asset, you have to control the asset. And so this is where the traditional approach makes sense. Low code, however, says, all right, we have this super complex process at the moment. There are some tools that allow the logic and some of the coding to be separated. So you as a business owner or as founder might, thanks Farzan, you as a business owner and founder might really have a good grasp about the logic that you need to get through your app. So you know that this needs to happen and then that needs to happen. And if these conditions are true, then this thing needs to happen. So most of us are conceptually able to sketch on a piece of paper a flow diagram or a series of steps in an order and figure that part out. And with low code tools, what means is you can kind of do that type of thing, design the product. And then a lot of what they call the boilerplate code, which is the reusable code that's done over and over and over again. A lot of that stuff is usually in these platforms developed already. And then you just go and configure and you build the things that you want. And then maybe you hand that over to a developer and they just fix it all up and tweak things for you. If I can keep it simple like that. You need minimal development expertise to help you along, but most of the work can be done by yourself as a logic flow and so on. So it's less complex. It's a lot faster than having pure development approach. You do require some dev skills at some point, but very little. And it's easier to maintain because you as a founder have full visibility pretty much about what happens. Those conversations with the client during the iterating process of your MVP works a lot quicker. And the whole thing is just, you're more involved and more fun. So I'm just reading Sophie's comments. Yes, you can. Let me get back to that. Sorry, I'm going to close the chat just for a few minutes because it's distracting. So problem with the low code approach and also the no code, which are very similar, is that you don't necessarily own all of your code. So all that boilerplate code, all the stuff that they've already written for you and then converted it into blocks, as well as the actual code base on which your application sits, you don't necessarily have visibility of that code. You usually own your data, but not the actual application nitty-gritty stuff itself. So that's why it is certainly possible to launch and run full-blown products in the low-code, no-code space. But if you really want to control your asset, I would recommend that eventually you convert that through proper developers once it's validated into a real standalone app, in which case, by that time, hopefully you've got lots of revenue for it anyway, so everyone wins. No code, on the other hand, this is the very extreme other end of it. This requires, for it to be no code, to me, means that you don't know any code whatsoever. You can do the whole thing just with business logic and just building blocks that you put together and string together. And there's a lot of cool applications out there, such as Zapier, for those of you who may not know about it, that to me is a pure no-code platform. All I do is configure things, and I can get data moved around to different systems, conditional statements done. There's some marketing automation systems like Entreport or Autopilot, for instance, or ActiveCampaign, MailChimp now, I think as well, that have conditional logic-based systems, which allow you to do, if this happens, then that happens. And if you think about it, that's really like a workflow in a business. You know, that's where the value can be extracted by a business, by reducing the amount of work required to make those conditional stages happen in the process, whatever that might be. And so that's represents an opportunity once again for everyone there. I wanted to mention something quickly about security here. So with your own code base on the very left-hand side on the code, you can control everything about it, which means you control the type of database to use. You control the type of network the data is sent over. You control X, Y, Z, right? And you have full control. And so it's very complex because you had to build all those individual little things before anything works. If you want to get a database, you have to go provision one and set it up and spin it up and get access to it. Like, it's a lot of work, but you have full control over every security aspect of it. You can lock that thing down. You can encrypt all aspects of it, like whatever you want to do, you can do. When it comes to low code and no code, you're somewhat reliant on the security practices and built-in recommendations, I guess. And you don't quite know exactly where the data is. They'll tell you, but you don't have access to the actual system on where it's hosted. So if you want to make a change to your database, usually with these things, there's like an interface that you can use, but the actual database itself, that's in the property and the custody, I suppose, and control of the platform. And so it's very easy for non-developers, such as you and me, to really fuck that up and not make an app that's secure and can be hacked. And so when you do go down this path, it will highly advise you to just read about the security issues or whatever, you know, security related forum topics and so on, about whatever tool you choose, just so you can get a grasp on that. Because what you don't want to do is launch a product, have it be insecure, and then have customers' data on there, and then I can have that get out. You know, like, you don't want that. So if you're a normal developer, you probably have trained into you this security thinking, but as a logic business process builder, thinker, drag and dropper person, you're kind of at the mercy of those places. And so that's, I just would recommend really looking at that as well, because not all these platforms are equal, and it's very easy to mess that part up. So be warned. All right. So, but now you probably know that I like these things because I'm here talking about, but the specific reasons I like it is because it reduces risk, right? It takes all that capital expenditure, that slow delivery, the uncertainty about if the market's going to want this or not, and it flips it on its head and gives me an option that I've now tested and executed on multiple times that says, I'm happy with a small variable cost. So if more people start using the thing, more cost comes, that's fine. Because that surge in user base normally coincides with surge in revenue as well through subscriptions. It allows me faster iteration. It means I can move quicker than a competitor who might also have a similar idea in the space. And I can build just better things faster, because if I can think it, I feel like I can now build it. And that's after about 2 years of working with these platforms. But really, I think if you go hard, you could probably do it in 6 months from nothing. You can get to a point where if you can think it up, you can probably make it a reality as a tool. It lets you get to revenue quickly because, like we saw with that skateboard and the car earlier, you can start charging for things way before the old approach or the non-MVP approach, you know. So you can, once you solve that core business problem, even if the thing looks like shit, you can already start charging for that. If you have personal relationship, for instance, with some of your customers and potential prospects that you need to be talking to through the validation process as well. And I have multiple tools now that they don't even have a website necessarily or anything like that. And they have either a monthly payment associated with them, or they are, you know, little projects that resulted out of implementing that for a particular need for these customers and so on. And it's been just amazing for me to be able to do that. I love it. And the biggest thing really for entrepreneurs, so you're here because you're an entrepreneur, right? You're not on this call if you're just, you know, someone that's not an entrepreneur in some sense. So this is a huge opportunity for you in many different respects. One, you can obviously build your own thing now much faster and quicker than any other time before. Second, you can take advantage of the industry. So you can, like I mentioned earlier, ride the wave of this industry and get involved in it, learn how these tools work, and then offer that as a service for people and start building for them. You can string up a bunch of developers, for instance, and start a company that specializes in taking no-code platform products and develop the actual real version of that. Think how good that would be, because you know exactly what you need to build. It's right in front of you. You just need to replicate it in a different thing. I think that's going to be a lot easier to do than working from scoping documents and user case stories and things like that. You can actually see the thing working. A lot of other things is so in the past, because of that high capital expenditure, if there was a problem in a business, some inefficiency that needed to be solved and that could be solved with code, no one would do it because it would be too expensive and there would be no return on investment for actually investing the time and effort into solving that little problem. But now you can be the person with these tools that goes and solve those little problems for people, as long as you can identify them. So I've been having a lot of success. I should mention that I make my living at the moment in a few different ways. One is through selling software. One is through doing marketing and advertising for people. And the other one is through video, right? And so through that marketing and advertising, a lot of that becomes marketing automations, like automating different processes in the business. It's making things more efficient. And so with tools like this at my disposal, I'm able to create customized software very quickly for people that have a tremendous amount of value for them. And you could be that person as well, like go take it. It's right there for you. This is a huge industry. It's only going to get bigger. And so if you're looking for something to sink your teeth into and really get into it, I can't see how you can really go wrong in this field. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. So there's the opportunity of it. Now, a lot of you are asking in the chat here and so on about different tools, and it's been a while now since I've looked at the market. So when I started doing it, there was only a handful, and that's maybe about 2 years ago, for the purpose of building an app that is consumer facing. There are tools that help you optimize an existing business process through no code or low code approaches, such as Zapier or If This Then That or Integromat. And these are very, very good because they give you the power as someone in a business to optimize the way that information flows and moves through that business and how things happen. So whereas you previously either had to have a VA or an employee to do X, Y, Z, these tools can do quite a lot of that. So that's an example of a no-code platform. And then you've got other things like Airtable, which is a database as a service platform, which allows you to have a very secure, very robust store of information, a database on the internet, but without having to spin up your own servers and things like that. And so they give you then what's called an API connector in between the database and whatever your application is, and you can then work with it. And so designing workflows and things inside Airtable is quite interesting as well. And that's, to me, a form of no code or low code, because you don't have to write code to have the database. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Some of them are big and they're made for enterprise and they're designed for a team in a workplace to take control of their products. But really, for me, the only one that is fit and that I've had success with is Bubble, for the purpose of developing an application like a SaaS product that I'm going to sell access to for other people that does the XYZ functions. So all these other tools, many of them, I guess, are really just more made for teams to take to release some of their workload. But yeah, Bubble is the one I would recommend if you wanted to start anywhere, to have a look at and see what you can do, because you can develop a standalone app. The database is taken care of, the security is taken care of. You just need to go read the documentation. Security is taken care of. The user sign up and management of the users is taken care of. The only thing you do is drag a thing onto a page, assign a function to it, and then that's your app. It works. And if there's time here today, we'll build one in 5 minutes that does a few things. I hope I get time. So long story short, there's a lot of stuff out there. I was going to try and run you through a whole bunch of different ones, but there's just too many now. Like it's really difficult. So instead, I'm going to suggest that you just skip all of that, just go straight to Bubble. Or if you are trying to optimize a workflow in a business, and it's not so much about developing an app, but it's more about moving information around and modifying information, then Zapier, Integromat, or if this and that's very useful for that as well. And between those tools, I've built software that relies just on Zapier and Airtable and a few APIs, and it's a full-blown software application that allows someone to like drop voicemails in people's phone boxes. You know, like it's pretty cool stuff you can do with very minimal.
Jurgen, so just on that last slide,
Yes.
some people are asking about what the icons are because there's no company names there. So we've got Bubble and Airtables and Zapier and Integromat are pretty obvious. What's the Beaver and the others, just to let people know?
The Beaver one's called Thunkable. So that one is a mobile development platform. I'll put a link here into the crowd. Give me 1 sec.
Thunkable. I'll just put some links in here too.
I'll chuck a link in the chat now. And then this is just some place you can go and search this site because they have a list of lots of different ones. So can everyone see that link?
Yep, the G2.
Yeah, it's just kind of your average review site, I guess, for software, but on there is a no-code section. You can go check that out, and there's a lot of stuff there. So Betty Builder is the one in red there on the right. I mean, there's a whole bunch. I didn't really want to go into them because it's just going to distract from showing you what it can do. Yeah. You know, once you get it working, I think that's be more interesting. There's no end of new ones that are going to come onto the market and so on. But I would say that Bubble is my weapon of choice here, and I would recommend that you just skip the whole process and just go straight there. And save yourself 6 months of messing around with stuff that's probably not going to be powerful enough eventually once you develop a little bit of skill to get there. So,
Jurgen, do you have a referral code? And can me and Scott, can we get cut in on the deal?
I should really have one, man, because once you see some of the stuff I've built, I'm really such a fan about this whole thing. It's allowed me, this no code, low code movement, and these tools have liberated me from the shackles of slow progress. You know, it's really amazing to be in a position where you can think of an idea and freaking build it, and by the weekend end it's done, and do that without development skills. It really is nothing. There's nothing light about this, guys. This is actually quite amazing that this is possible, and I'm just really like fanatical about this stuff. So I should get myself a link from them, because I'm pushing a lot of people towards it. All right, well, I'm going to move on. There's other questions. Yeah, cool. Sophie, I'm going to really try and do that for you guys. Let's keep moving. There's some objections sometimes that come out when we talk about these type of things. And one is this just a toy? Is it real? You know, can I build anything real with these tools? Surely not, because surely I need super detailed development knowledge and so on to build something that's actually valuable. And that's not true, because here's 4 examples of companies that have, you know, that first one, I mean, that's got a lot of money raised, right? Any one of us would be quite happy with that number. That app was built on Bubble. There's stories of people just like you and me churning over 50 grand a month in MRR for an app that helps business people to stay on top of who they need to communicate with. You know, there's all sorts of different examples, if you go look for them, that these things can build real software, that they can support real users, they can scale with that development need, and et cetera, et cetera. I'll show you some of the apps. So I just wanted to make that point there to handle any objections that you might face on that side. Like I said, I think you should build it in this first, save yourself all that headache, get closer to what your customer wants, and then go to developers. But charge for the whole process from people that are close to the problem that you want to solve. And so what about functionality? So what can you actually do with these tools? You know, well, you can move data. So sorry, the reason I'm throwing this up there is because if you know what you can do and the kind of realm of things that's possible, generally speaking, then next time a problem presents itself to you in your daily life, you'll be able to link these 2 things up. So you'll have that problem, and now that you know that you can do user-generated content requisition using a no-code platform, next time you need a place for people to send photos in and then do something automatically, maybe you'll think, okay, maybe I should build that in Bubble and then have a place for people to submit those. So the reason that's why I'm doing this, making you aware of it. So you can build things like anything that moves data between systems. You can hook, like Zapier or if this then that or Integromat, hooks different systems up together, you can use Bubble for that. You could build a Zapier clone in Bubble if you wanted to. You can send emails, you can make it receive emails, you can record, play, send, receive audio files. You can do it in browser. It works on a mobile phone. It works on the computer. One of my software allows you to make phone calls. So you can click a button on your CRM system. It automatically hooks up into Bubble, into my Bubble app. And then from there, it talks to Twilio and makes a phone call through the browser. So this whole industry of a one-click phone dialer system for call centers and stuff, I've basically built something similar for people who can't afford the call center software, but still want that. You can take payments, you can make payments, you can create things like smart calculators, forms, surveys, super complex or super simple, however you like it. You can scan barcodes, read QR codes with your phone and then have it talk to the app. I mean, any and all things that you think would be useful functionality, usually in a piece of software that's going to help you optimize a business workflow or deliver value to someone like that. Chances are that there's an API somewhere or a native capability within these platforms that can do that for you. So don't think it's not powerful is the message here. And if you wanted to level up, so most of these things that I've talked about now, I never really mentioned code too much, even though I know how to code. I would say if you were in the shoes of someone that has no coding knowledge whatsoever, then you can still do this. You can build things that are functionally good with Bubble or with a combination of these tools. However, if you just went and did like the JavaScript in a day course or HTML in a day or CSS in a day, right? And you just spent maybe 6 months of a year systematically learning these 4 things, you will become unstoppable and you will be able to build some of the stuff like I'm showing you today, because that's pretty much what I did. I'm completely uneducated or untrained in these languages, and I've been able to use my friends in extreme situations. Some of them are on the chat. So hi guys, thank you very much for your support and my technical questions every now and then. You'll be able to use a conversation with someone to get you over a hurdle and then pick up the reins again and then move through that. Or you will be able to use things like Stack Exchange reading and W3 schools, although I know no one says to learn it there. Fact is, see Scott shaking his head. So the thing is, everyone says don't do it there, and it's like very important. You can't learn it there. But I did it, and I'm developing software that's using on that. So, take one of these. So HTML, you need to know, because when you look at the web, most of these things are going to be on the web, these apps that you code, and they're going to display like a phone app on the phone, but it's still a web app. And so HTML tells, the reason you want to learn HTML is because that's how you lay things out, and it's the data that's displayed. You want to learn CSS because that shows the data in a particular way. So that styles the text, or that creates a little hover effect when the mouse moves over or something, So CSS is the look and feel. HTML is the structure and the information that's on the screen at the moment. JavaScript's important to know because that is something you use to change what that information is on the screen. Or if you do Node.js, which is more a server type side, very, very similar. You can start making the thing talk to other applications and make what's called API calls. And APIs, I'm probably, like I've said, I'm not a developer, so I'm probably using the wrong terminology. But to me, an API is a system that someone's built for a very specific function, like put 2 and 2 together and give me the result. So I send a little bit of data to the system, it does the work there, and it brings it back to me. And so there's a place called Rapid API, which has a collection. It's like a marketplace for APIs. And so you can, for instance, go to Rapid API and say Video API, type that in, and someone will have an API somewhere that is designed purely for you to be able to send and receive and crunch video and transcode it and turn it into different formats and do things with it. And so by knowing about that API, knowing how API calls work, and understanding get, put, all these kind of different methods of authentication, so on, working with APIs, it's a little bit of work to learn that. But once you do, you almost have an unending capability of what you can develop in your software, because if you can find an API for it, you can have that functionality without developing it from scratch yourself. And so that's my approach here. So I'm almost like someone that's got like a big ball of sticky tape, and then I'm going selecting little things and I'm plugging it onto the sticky tape, and I'm creating this weird Frankenstein thing that incorporates all of these features. But as a together piece of software, as long as it solves a problem for a business, they don't care how it's built. It just needs to be secure and needs to work. And so that's kind of how it works. So highly recommend spending a little bit of time in these areas if you want to really take it to the next level. Have a quick look at the chat real quick, and then I'll move into some quick demos. Oh, actually, sorry. What I wanted to also just leave you guys with before we go into the demos is this whole, for those of you who have developed apps, for those of you who have developed marketplaces, any kind of software that relies on some of these features that I mentioned earlier, so community engagement, video, audio, whatever it might be, like it was very difficult to build that 5 years ago. But the walls are coming down, and the barrier to entry for some of these things are much lower now than it was before. The problem with that for you is guys like me are going to come and eat your lunch because we can now do it. So this citizen developer is rising up, and they're closer to the problems because they probably have these problems themselves, which is why they want to start the startup. So they can develop something that's probably better able to handle that problem in a much shorter period of time with less expense than what you with your app had to do. And so when you build apps with these things and you try to use them as a way to carve out a piece of the market, it's important that you realize that there's like a million other people now also doing the same thing. And so there's going to be a lot of the same types of apps that are being developed by different people, and thinking about what makes you be the market leader or the dominant position so that people choose you is something that you seriously need to think about if you are going down this no-code path for the purpose of app development, or if you have an existing app and it can be thrown on its head by citizen developers coming in. So that's just something I wanted you to think about as you go forward, because you don't want to end up in a situation where someone else just comes in and develops your app in a weekend, and for whatever reason they have a big network they can share it with, and then they take your market. So all right, before we go into demos, let's have a quick little scout here at the chat if there's anything. Robbie or Dave, do you know if there's any questions that stood out to you so far, rather than me going through the whole thing?
No, not at this stage. There are a few links. Scott's just needs to resend his links to
Sorry about that.
Great.
Participants rather than panelists. Cool. And I think the main one, what we'll do is we'll let you do the demo, and then we'll get into a quick discussion as to the different route.
Cool. And how much time have we got left? About 15 minutes?
We're at a half hour. We know it's a few people are starting to drop off. I guess they've got day jobs to go to, but yeah, no.
We'll give you another 15 minutes. I think everyone's keen to see it in action.
I know usually we do the networking thing as well. So
yeah.
So in this case, obviously we're COVIDing it now. So all right, so here's what I built, guys. The first one is a software app that works with an existing CRM system. So I'm a huge fan of this application called Entreport, and I use that in all my marketing automation stuff. Most of my web pages are built on that. Like, it's an amazing system. But as far as the CRM is concerned, it has a few downfalls, and not that the others that compete with it even have these features, but it would be nice to have these features, which I would consider more enterprisey features. Sometimes when I work with some of my clients in the marketing capacity I mentioned earlier, we can generate like 50 or 80 leads a day kind of thing, in terms of interest that we can generate for their business. So having something like a phone dialer makes a lot of sense once you get that kind of volume, because instead of the lead coming in and then you're like, okay, look on the screen, then you pick up your phone and then you have to type the number in, you mistype it and you dial the wrong number, like all this kind of just day-to-day frustrations and inefficiencies you can take away with a phone dialer. So when I saw that Bubble can basically do that, and through Twilio and learning a little bit of the integration side of things, we were able to build like a fully integrated phone dialer into the Entreport system that someone pays for access, and then they can literally click one button, make a phone call. That phone call is recorded. Once the phone call's finished, it transcribes it and it sends the recording and the transcription straight back into Entreport. and makes a note. And so now someone with a team of 8 people making, 50 calls a day each kind of thing, they can now all have this information in one place again, rather than in notepads and all sorts of different places. And that is an example of a very simple business problem that is super valuable to people. They can use it for training. They can do all sorts of things with those recordings and transcripts, and they'll pay for it. So that was the MVP for TapTapGo. We then went on to develop video emails. So video emails is something I've been using over the last 8 years or so. From back in niche interviews started, I had to get people's attention and try to interview them. So I'd send them a video email. But it took me like half an hour to make one email, because I had to edit the video. I had to design the whole email. I had to cut things, render it, upload the video, get the link from Vimeo, put it in email. Like, it was a fucking mission. And so with Bubble, I've been able to build a video emailer that you click one button, it opens up the webcam, it records you, you click close, and it sends the email out to the right person with the right message, and does that all automatically. And so we then integrated that into Entreport as well. Also, Entreport, for whatever reason, they don't have mobile access. So a lot of people are on this system. It's an expensive system. It's super powerful, but not being able to access it on your phone is a little bit of a letdown. So we developed, just threw that in. We could just go, oh, that's a big problem. Let's just build that as well. And so we built like a whole mobile version of Entreport on Bubble that you can get access to all your contacts, search through them, make phone calls, record those phone calls, transcribe them, send them in, all sorts of things that people want to do day to day that for whatever reason is impossible. With Bubble, we can make the link. And then things like events, a lot of people run events. So we have a QR code scanner that's built in, and you basically just pick the phone up, scan someone's ticket, and then it links with the system and records that person as having attended the event, and so on. So I would really love to show you what it looks like in person, but there's just not enough time in a presentation like this. So if anyone's interested, just go to jurgenvp.com. I put the link at the very top. Link up with me on LinkedIn, and I will happily do another demo, like an in-depth demo, if anyone wants to spend an hour or two going through the nitty-gritties of this and see the actual functionality. For now, I'll move on. Next one. This is one of the most powerful things I've ever built in my life. It's called AdSlayer, and it is currently completely open and free. So you can go to adslayer.io. And I think if everyone goes there now, it's probably going to crash the server, but we'll see. It'll be a good test. What this one does is it helps you to navigate the online advertising space, market research, customer understanding of your customer, where they are, what do they think about, all of these marketing related questions that I have for myself all the time. I built the tool that I wish I had as a marketer to help me answer these questions and get to revenue for my clients quicker. And so with AdSlayer, for instance, this is an example of a tool that used to be on a bunch of spreadsheets with sticky tape and very rudimentary JavaScript skills. I was like making it send data back and forth, and Zapier and all that stuff. And I tried to get someone, yeah, Scott, go for it. I tried to get someone to help me build AdSlayer, and even I had money for it. I wanted to pay for it. I couldn't get someone that was interested to build it. So it's one of those things that probably would not have existed if it wasn't for no code. But now with it in my hands, and given that I built it myself in the end, I don't owe anyone any ownership shares, nothing. And it is an extremely valuable tool. It is responsible for, probably well over 6 figures of income for myself through using it in order to get results for people, and that comes from an app that costs like what, $25 a month, So that's a pretty good ROI if you ask me. And if you're a marketer or you'd like Facebook ads or anything like that, I'd highly recommend going check it out. Eventually I will paywall the thing, but for the moment it's just there for you to use. All right, this one's pretty cool. This is a system that I use in my emails to reach out to people. Some of you in the group, in the crowd here, may have received one of these things from me in the past. It's essentially a animated GIF that makes it look like I wrote your name on a piece of paper, but there's a lot of tools that do it static images. It's just like you going like, and then the image doesn't move and it looks fake when people write on it. But I don't know if you can read, like really zoom in here. If you didn't see these next to each other, I have not met anyone that thought it wasn't real. because of the movement and everything else. And this is an example of something that's now integrated into my kind of CRM system for myself. It's not a public facing app. What it does is I get a new lead from someone, and then I just respond to them. And as long as I've got their name in there, the system will automatically generate this image and use that in the email as an outreach email. And if they click on it, they go to a special page where a video from me to them is hosted. So the whole thing feels very personal, feels very real, and feels like I've done some effort. But rather than taking half an hour, it took 3 seconds to do. It's another example of a no-code little functional tool that you can build. This one is called Thanky.io. Currently, the video section is getting reworked on this one, so it's not active at the moment. But this tool is being used by someone at the moment. And so what this does is, let's say you have a big online audience of people that have done an online course that you published, or you just want to survey your customers to get a sense for, do they like you? Do they not like you? And do they have maybe a review that they could share with you? And so what this tool does is it does that. It says, send it to someone, they enter their name and email. They can click a quick NPS score, give you a comment, and then click one button to record a video testimonial or a review for you. And then you get all of those into one place so that you can easily manage it. So rather than having some being sent to you through Messenger and some being sent to you through email and having all that data in different places, you can just get your own Thanky link and then thank everyone else. You can put it in your email signature, all sorts of places where this is useful. And then systematically collect these endorsements and testimonials from people. And there are many industries where that works really well. You know, you might not think that you'll ever do a video testimonial for someone, but it can happen. And this is a tool that needed to exist, in my view, to make that process smooth and efficient. And so once again, built on Bubble. My limited design skills are letting me down a little bit, but you can make it look anyway as well. So I do want to say that, you know, if we look at some of these tools, that's pretty ugly, right? That's like a shitty looking, ugly tool, but it functionally delivers on a process. So as soon as you know how to use it, all the design crappiness goes away. You don't even think about it anymore. You just get the result you want from it, you know? So that's the kind of stuff I'm interested in building. And I wanted to say, if you are a UX designer or a designer that can help me jazz things up, please get in touch, because I would love to speak to you and look at some of these apps and just make them look cooler. You know, it's definitely not something that I think you can do without a talent or a skill set for it. Last one I want to show you is this called Bunker Tracker. And this one I can actually show you real quick because I tested it last night just to make sure I don't embarrass myself here. And it's very simple. So with this COVID situation that we're in and everyone rushing to the stores and buying all of the different products out there, and we can't even find pasta and shit. I built a tool for people to keep track of all this crap that they bought that they might never eat. And so what this does is you take a product like this corn kernels, right? And then in the app, you just click scan barcode. It will then scan the barcode. Oops, let me just get that in there. It's a little bit buggy. Come on. Looks like I am embarrassing myself. So it scans the barcode automatically. Can't see it. Anyway, once it does that, it actually does a Google search for that barcode and then brings back the meta description and the title and parses the information of the first result. And so you can automatically use it to look up a product. And so with that, you don't have to enter the names of all the products that you have in your kitchen now. You can just scan barcode, scan, set quantity and expiry date, and then save it. And then automatically it will let you know when the expiry date's near, so that you eat that food first before buying more stuff. Because if you have a whole cupboard full of this stuff, you're going to forget about it in 2 years and you're going to lose a lot of the food, you know. So that's the idea for this product. That one was built over a weekend. I built it for myself because we stocked up on a few little things. And yeah, my friend said that's pretty good. So I just turned it into an app using Bubble. And because of Bubble, I was able to do that. And I think that's pretty awesome, you know, testament to the power. You can legit go from, oh, that's a good idea, to a fully working app with a website and everything within about 3 days. And that to me is pretty profound. And definitely worth looking into for yourself. So thanks very much.
Brilliant. I think if you could hear the virtual round of applause.
Oh, can you guys type clap in the chat, please?
Yay.
Thanks. That's awesome, guys. Thank you.
There's been a couple of questions as we've been through this, and I think a lot of people have answered them, and I've been super engaged all the way through this. And now I can't scroll up to look at the questions because everyone's clapping.
If you got a question, throw it in the chat section. That'd be great.
Yeah. So there's a couple of them here. We've put a couple of links on the chat as it's been going through. And what we will do is we will throw those links into the YouTube channel description for this once it's been published. And they're just saying here, what's the difference? There's a question here. What's the difference between AppSheet, Bubble.io, and Glide? Which would be the best to go with?
Okay, cool. Haven't used AppSheet, haven't used Glide, so I don't know. However, I can tell you that I think AppSheet is going to be, Bubble is probably going to be the most versatile and the cheapest at the same time as being secure enough and robust enough for most purposes. If you think of the cost of Bubble, it is like peanuts, guys. It's like 25 US now, I think, per month to have an app hosted, working. Like, this means the database is taken care of, like everything is done for $25, like it's nothing. So I'm not sure, but AppSheet, I think, is a Google product now. Don't quote me on that. And with that, either it could become really cheap, I don't know what the cost is, or it could go enterprise and be very expensive, and who knows. And so you're probably going to get better overall quality of an app with less functionality on AppSheet, I would suspect, than you would for Bubble. Because Bubble is kind of, there's a huge community of people that are developing plugins and apps for it that make it more effective all the time. So every time you log on to Bubble, there's just more you can do with it. And I don't know if that same ethos and mindset would be on AppSheet. So it really depends. And I'm sorry, I can't answer that in any more detail than that.
So before I lose it, there's one from Jason Burgers here in the chat. Did the personalized GIF have its own CRM website name that we can look it up on the web? Or
No, and it never will. The reason for that, Jason, is because the cat's out the bag now, and the more people are using it, the less effective it will be. And so I'm using that myself at the moment as a competitive advantage in a way. I just wanted to demonstrate to you guys the functionality. But if you are willing to pay a lot of money for it, I will gladly talk to you about implementing a custom solution for you. But I am deliberately keeping it very close to my chest in terms of rolling it out. I don't want it to be an app that people use because it's just going to reduce the efficacy of it for me. But happy to talk one-on-one kind of stuff. If you're interested, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
There's a question here from Sophie. Can the apps go straight to the App Store or Google Play?
Yes, in some instances, Thunkable is a good example of a mobile-focused development platform. So Thunkable, I think, was linked in the chat there earlier. Absolutely. With Bubble, you can, it's all web apps development. So they use, the web frameworks to build the actual functionality of the thing. But you can click a button that says native app, and two things can happen. One, you don't need the App Store, because if you can get people to save the link to that, when they open it on their phone, it'll look like an app. I think it's called a progressive web app. I'm not sure. The second thing is you might be able to get a company that'll take that, and then once you've got your app built, they'll just load it over into an App Store format for you. It's still much, much faster to do it that way than build mobile app from scratch yourself, if you're happy with some basic functionality. Now, there are some things you're not going to get mobile app wise specifically, although you can access things like the GPS and all these things, it's possible. You just saw me use the camera there. You have the functionality, access to these things, but there might be some deeper level stuff which you don't have access to, like maybe native SMS sending from the phone itself, which only a real native app would be able to do, that type of thing. I'm speaking kind of few assumptions here, but yeah, in a nutshell, it shouldn't be too hard to get it ported over.
Okay.
Next one.
Just going from the top in the Q&A section.
Cool.
Mukesh says, once you create a no-code app and get some customers using it, Later point, you want a full code-based app where you own everything. How do you move users from one app, the no-code app, to the other app?
So, Makesh, thanks for your comment. Copy and paste. CSV export from one, CSV import into another. You'll obviously, when you develop the actual real code base, if you will, with proper developers, there's going to have to be some migration process and things that need to be thought through. But at its base, really, you've got a database over here with records and fields. You just need to make the same records and fields over here, and then suck the data from one to the other. So other than going into more technical things on that, I don't, it's not going to be that hard. Customers don't give a shit because they just want to get the end result of whatever your problem your thing's solving. So as long as they don't feel an interruption in their service or their problem being solved, as long as the problem solving doesn't stop, they couldn't care if you built it on Bubble or Thunkable or AppSheet. They don't care. No one cares. So if the question is from that perspective, then I would say as long as you communicate early enough so that they can plan for any potential disruption during that process, you shouldn't have to have a problem. Like I can't see it being a huge issue.
That leads into the next question, which is around privacy issues with Bubble, e.g. the customer data. Where is that data? Do you know where that data is stored?
Yes, it sits encrypted at rest in an Amazon warehouse data set, S3 storage or CloudFront or something.
Can you choose the region that goes in?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. With these tools, they're limited sometimes to where the data is stored. So in Bubble's sense, I don't think you can choose the region at the moment. So it's all probably in the US and therefore subject to their legal frameworks. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind, which is why I wanted to mention the security thing. I don't want people to suddenly go off and build things that do sensitive processing of sensitive information and store customer data and things like that and not really understand the security implications of what you're doing, So that is important. Did I answer that question?
Yep.
Sufficiently? Yeah.
So we're at 9 minutes. I know I've got a hard stop at 9 because that's when my day job starts. What I am going to start to do is I am going to start to promote any other further questions from this. Hit Jurgen up.
I just want to say one thing. Sorry, Dave. Just Andrew said here in the chat that on the dedicated Bubble plans, you are able to choose your region where it's deployed. So whoever asked that question before, Scott, I think you were. Yeah, so it's possible if you pay enough, So
yeah. So just on that, I guess just on the low code, we've gone very much into the B2C kind of route, looks like with Bubble. For those of you who are not looking to create an MVP, but you are looking for maybe a career change into this, I know from my own personal experience in the Microsoft space, and again, I can only talk about the Microsoft Power App side, and I guess there's, as Jurgen alluded to, there's lots of different platforms out there. But there are people I've seen that have no experience at all and now are essentially they're called Microsoft MVPs, and they've essentially built their whole career out of low code, no code, and based themselves around Microsoft and the Power Platform. And I'll put the link in the tool there, and I've actually put in some links to people who have basically, like I say, made careers. There's a famous one, some security guard at Heathrow. He's super famous. He's met the CEO of Microsoft and whatnot now, and made himself a career out of this. So if you are interested in not potentially creating your own MVP if you're a startup or in that, but you are looking to just go into this space, then there's lots of material out there. There is one specifically I know that you can go and learn lots of new stuff on it, and I've put the link in there. It's Mark Smith. He's in New Zealand. He's a Kiwi, and he's nz365guy.com. Check him out. He's also got loads of free material on his site as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start promoting a lot of you to a panelist, right? And so I want to see your screens on before we go, just to see the beautiful faces of the WA tech ecosystem. So please start sharing your screens before we close. Scott, what have we got next?
Oh, mate, what have we got next? That's a really good question. So we have Marlon Juneman. I want to give a shout out to Charlie, actually. He hooked us up with Marlon late last year saying, hey, everyone thinks creating a startup in Perth is a bit of a trick. It's challenging. Access to capital is hard. We've got massive distances to the next capital city and all of that stuff. But try creating a startup in Iran, where the government just kind of impacts what you can and can't do. So Marlon had a successful startup. He raised 1.5 million euros. He had super growth going crazy. And then all of a sudden, the government changed all of that. And literally overnight, he went into survival mode with his company. So it has a lot of parallels to what is going on now, with everyone feeling impacted by their market just being ripped out from under their feet. So it's going to be a really interesting story, and tons of advice coming out in 2 weeks' time from Marlon. So check it out.
Right, cool. Well, I'm promoting everybody, but I'm not seeing many webcams getting turned on. I will name and shame. So that's 2 weeks, is it, Scott?
Yep, 2 weeks' time. So just said.
And Cam, I can see Cam as being our roving reporter there. Cam in my top right hand screen. I don't know where he is. Anybody else? Cam, was there a question there that you thought was pretty hot, and you want to share one of these amazing caps for?
Everyone's asking about the hats, man. They're hot.
Yeah, man, they're the hottest ticket in startup land at the moment. Thanks, guys, for wearing your cool ISO hats and hiding your ISO hairdos this morning. Everyone appreciates it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have a look at at questions, and we'll fire out an email to someone and get their address, and we'll send out a hat. We'll send one to you too, Jurgen.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah,
Mate,
I should have said I can see Glenn's on here as well. I should have had my Beecham group. Beecham, is that a Beecham hat, or is that Doc? Right, let's just get rid of Glenn. He's a Docker supporter. Right, no.
It looks like he's lying in space.
He does. Like I say, we've all got our backgrounds here. I won't put the background I had on earlier. Very inappropriate, but no, good to see everybody on here. I just want to take a great screenshot for this. We'll be back here in 2 weeks' time, without fail, with our speaker. And I guess any other things before we close, Scott?
No, so I know there's a few questions left in the Q&A section. Sorry, we're sort of running out of time here, but it is getting close to 9 o'clock and everyone's got to get back to work. So I'm sure we could probably get those questions to Jurgen. Or Jurgen,
yeah.
Do you have ways that people can contact you?
Yeah, just go to jurgenvp.com. That'll take you straight to my LinkedIn profile. Or you can go to hellojurgen.com if you want to book a meeting with me and chat about any of this stuff. I've got nothing to sell anyone, unless you want to give me money, I'll take it.
Unless you want to.
So I tell you what we could do, Scott, we could have a channel, right? Just called on the morning startup. Okay, we've got a new channel now. It's called Ask Jurgen. Okay.
Right. Hey, that's awesome.
If you want to ask Jurgen a question, okay, it's on the morning startup channel. Just put in hashtag Ask Jurgen, and you can ask Jurgen any of your questions there. Anything from the meaning of life, ointments for certain rashes, and also low code.
How about someone makes a no-code app to contact Jurgen? That would be
yes. What a great idea! Right,
here's a challenge for you.
2 minutes on the hour. I've got to get off and prep, but it's been great seeing you. At the height, we had 62 people on this, and plus us beautiful presenters. But we will see you in a couple of weeks' time. Cheers.
Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.